I'm Karen Cornelius, a visual artist and printmaker. I make work about place and belonging. I'm coming to you from my studio in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. I have a home studio with a Praga etching press, and before the pandemic, I used to work out of Martha Street Printmaking Studio in town. I enjoy the contact with other printmakers and the access to their excellent facilities where I can create my etching plates. I'm an innovative printmaker with a focus on environmentally friendly printmaking processes and materials. I continue to explore and experiment, seeking to find less toxic ways of working without sacrificing high-quality results. In spite of early childhood warnings not to mix electricity and water, I have become an explorer of electroetching. I first stumbled on the electroetching technique while in the high western Arctic in a little village called Ulahatuk, where I was working with the local Inuit printmakers. I was sent up north on the recommendation of Michael Boss, who was the director of education at the Winnipeg Art Gallery at the time. I was asked by Darlene Wright, the curator of Inuit art at the same gallery, to assess the situation up north and give workshops to try and interest local artists and printmakers in getting back into making prints. I discovered this electroetching unit in the back storeroom, and together with Louis, one of the local Inuit printmakers, who remembered a bit about how it worked, and got this unit working and etched several zinc plates. On my return to Winnipeg, I set up my own, much more basic system and continued to experiment with electroetching, referencing Alfonso Crujero's published electroetching handbook. I did an artist residency in the Canary Islands with Alfonso Crujero. I started to explore the many facets of electroetching and began to consider how I might manipulate this process in service of my own conceptual ideas. Electroetching differs from traditional etching in that it requires two parallel plates submerged in copper sulfate and water and attached to a power source. The etching on the positive plate resembles the line and tonal etch of a traditional etching, while the negative plate attracts metal, which creates a more abstract, graphic, rich, dark, black image. This method of working produces no toxic fumes and creates very little residue, which means disposal isn't a big issue, and it's pretty easy to set up. In my series of work, Growing, Going, Gone, that memorializes the abrupt ending of the 100-year-old tropical jungle facility in our local park here in Winnipeg, I address both the demise of this facility and the larger human experience of grief, sadness, and loss. I spent weeks in this place before it was destroyed, drawing and preparing plates. I used the physical characteristics of the electroetching process to create narratives in each piece. I used the positive plate to speak to what was, and the negative plate to exemplify the destruction of this special place. I drew my emotional response into the remaining paper surface, allowing the drawing to spill off the paper in all four directions, as the pain of grief and loss are hard to control or contain. I integrated yellow and violet Japanese paper, the color of bruising, and bled the life juice of the plants into the paper, causing staining. I am unaware of anyone else manipulating the negative electroetching plate as image. In another series of electroetchings, I experimented using both the negative and positive plates to etch actual pieces of clothing. In this series, titled Displacement, I soaked the items of clothing in the copper sulfate and water and sandwich the clothing items between the negative and positive plates, allowing the electrical current to etch and corrode the configuration of the clothing where it contacted the metal. Some metal got trapped in the clothing during the process. I used this experimental process to represent the journey in this series, which probes what is physically carried with you when you are forced to leave your home, and the emotional, psychological baggage you bring with you in your body. This series is based on memories from my childhood growing up in the Congo, when we had to flee political instability and rebel rebellion. I feel this work can resonate with anyone who has had to leave home due to a natural disaster, fire, economic imperatives, danger, or insecurity. Recently, during the pandemic, I embarked on a series of drawings of my hydrangeas in my backyard. This series is called Fading in and Out of Glory. I marked the paper influenced by my emotional landscape of fear, anxiety, and isolation. In the spring and summer, the voluptuous blooms exude hope, transforming from one moody color to another. This piece is called Reveling in Mass Gatherings. In the fall, the multi-petaled snowballs fade to shadowy silhouettes of their former glory. This piece is called Late Summer's Decline, Creeping Despair. This piece is called Blowing in the Wind, from code orange to code red. Then in the winter, the snow piled heavy on the petaled heads, forcing each one to bravely persevere. This piece is called Snow-Kissed Bouquet, Lockdown and Alone. In these drawings, I engage in a survival ritual as an act of resilience, recording my fluctuating state of mind from joyous to melancholy to despair and to hope. This piece is called Dreary, Dismal, Whipped Up Fury, Shocked, Stormed, Siege. This piece is Drab, Disheveled, Dried Out Petals, Locked Down. This piece is titled Dreary, Distressed, and Troubled. As a printmaker, I was unable to resist creating several lino cuts of my hydrangeas. This one is titled Wilted Resilience and Resolve. Thank you for watching. I appreciate your interest and your support.